Thanks so much.
Good morning and welcome. My name is Sam Osey, and I serve on your Fellowship Board of Directors. I want to thank you all for being here today and extend a special welcome to any of our visitors. If you would like more information about the Fellowship, please sign our virtual guest book online at uufames.org/guestbook. Whether you're joining us from home or are here in Fellowship Hall, we invite you to stay after the service for fellowship, coffee, and a chance to introduce yourself and join in conversation with kindred spirits. A couple announcements on behalf of the RE world. We are intending for RE classes to start on September 11th. We'll have a kickoff event on that Sunday, and registration information will be coming out in the next few emails, so keep your eyes peeled. We are still looking for our next religious educator. If you know someone who is interested or maybe halfway vaguely qualified or might be interested in learning more, by all means, send them our way. That should not be a member of the congregation. That's a paid staff member. So we're looking for your friends, your neighbors, your former colleagues. We are also looking for volunteer teachers to help lead our RE classes. A lot of people here have done that in the past. But it's also a good way for new members who are still learning about this whole UU thing to get a handle on what we are and what we do, and to work alongside a more experienced teacher. It's a good place to start if you're looking for a place to fit into the congregation. So, on behalf of this caring, nurturing congregation, I welcome each and every one of you to this sacred space. Here we invite you into an experience of transformation, hope, renewal, and connection, which may inspire you to understand life in new ways. Thank you for joining us today.
Our opening words this morning are from Maya Angelou. In every town and village, in every city square, in crowded places, I searched the faces, hoping to find someone to care. I read mysterious meanings in the distant stars. Then I went to schoolrooms and pool rooms and half-lighted cocktail bars. Braving dangers, going with strangers, I don't even remember their names. I was quick and breezy and always easy, playing romantic games. I wined and dined 1,000 exotic Jones and Janes in dusty dance halls, at debutante balls, on lonely country lanes. I fell in love forever, twice every year or so. I wooed them sweetly, was theirs completely, but they always let me go, saying, bye now, no need to try now. You don't have the proper charms. Too sentimental and much too gentle. I don't tremble in your arms. Then you rose into my life like a promised sunrise, brightening my days with the light in your eyes. I've never been so strong. Now I'm where I belong. We light this chalice today.
Just not get it off.
Woke up at 10? Yeah, all right. I don't know if it's here. But this is a wonderful... All right, I think we're good. So hard to know, hard to wake up regularly, very early in the morning. listening was hard early in the morning. They could hear the words, but they couldn't see the Great Spirit, and so it took great concentration. And people are people. So after a time, one and then another began sleeping late in the morning. They began to agree that maybe it wasn't necessary to get up early every day to hear the Great Spirit. Life was good so long as hunting went well and there was sufficient food. Well, they could make their own karabi, a ceremony with song and dance. They didn't need to get up so early. People are people. But the Great Spirit grieved. He wanted to give a sign that the people could understand, and so he asked his servant, Narundari, to gather the tribes one last time, and they came. And Narundari motioned for them to find a place in a circle around a large gum tree that was growing at the center of a clearing. And when all the tribes were seated in silence, there was a cracking sound, and the gum tree split wide open, and the people stared, and a huge talang, a tongue, had descended from the sky and disappeared into the center of the tree, and the tree closed around it. All were silent. And then Narundari told the people they could return to their hunting and their corroborees. They shrugged their shoulders and they went. But after a time, some people, they grew bored. Seeking pleasure didn't bring them lasting satisfaction, and they found they wanted more from life, and they longed to hear the Great Spirit's voice. So they went to Narundari for help, but he said, no, the Great Spirit will never speak to you again. They went to the graves of their ancestors for help, and they found no help there. They asked the nebulae of the Milky Way for help, but they found no help there. There was no answer, and so they grieved. They painted themselves white with a white clay, and they asked the constellation of the Southern Cross for help. And they called out to Wayanguri, the wise old fellow who lives in the Southern Cross. And Wayanguri invited them to gather around that gum tree one more time. And they came and they sat in silence while Wayanguri spoke. He asked, did you see the talang descend into the tree? They all nodded. They had seen that. The talang is a sign of the Great Spirit's voice. And when the talang descended into that tree, it was a sign that the voice of the Great Spirit is in fact in all things. As Wayanguri's message slowly sank in, the people's worry wrinkles were smoothed away. And since that day, life has been richer. Since that day, the Aboriginal people have come to recognize the Great Spirit's voice is in all things. It is in the wind that whistles and blows. It is in the crash of thunder and the gentle pitter-patter of rain. Can you make a pitter-patter sound of rain? It is in the tinkling of bird song and the gurgling of a river. The Great Spirit's voice is everywhere, and it speaks through the bushes and trees and their many shades of green. It blossoms with the flowers, is in the shimmer of a fish's scales and the sleek movements of animals. If we listen, maybe we can hear it too. Thanks for being here for our story today. And today you can either stay on the carpet or sit back with your family as you wish. And I invite us all to think about how we hear this Great Spirit throughout the days and times of our lives. We moved now to our time of milestones. It's a tradition in our fellowship to share our joys and concerns with one another, to find comfort in coming together to join those joys and tribulations that mark our lives. If you're here with us today, I invite you first to come to the microphone to share a joy or concern, and I will light a candle for you. And after we've heard the joys and concerns from people gathered here today, we'll sit with silence for a bit while we change our technology and invite those joining our service today through Zoom to share their joys and concerns. Our time of milestones.
Hello, I'm Banette Sherman. I think most of you have seen me for a long time. I got here by being here in 1999 or something like that. And I look at you and I think about the wonderful, especially when you look at yourselves. I mean, this is fantastic. I looked at the people that were coming in here. You have to stop me sometimes when I'm talking too much. And she's helping me. Because I start going like this and not saying that I should say things the way that I used to. I'd also like to say that there are several women here in the WOW scene, and that's, I don't know how many of you, you'd have to tell me how many people were helping each other. And it's helped us a lot for people who have gotten sick, and we all know that that's happened for a long time, the last 3 not years, but a while. And I was one of those people. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And these people, these women, helped me over and over and over. And I'm about to cry because I love you all. Yeah, she may have to. And I also want to say something. You may not like this, but there's a possibility that I may leave. It makes me want to cry too. That I may go back to Portland, and my son, Dan, thank you, and he wants to come back, and his wife does not want to come back to this area, and so it's been a difficulty because they want me to be in with their little kids. There's 2 of them, and I know we're not supposed to keep talking, but I'll do it just for a minute or so. So there's a problem. It's not a problem. It's just the possibility that I might go back to Portland. I've been there before with the little boys that I was helping with then. And then I got sick for a while and so forth and so on. So I hope that I can stay here. We'll see what happens. But I feel like, you know, I've got to also take care of the 2 boys that we have that I don't have, but I have them in another way. So if you want to talk about that another time, we can do that now. I just don't want to take up the time that everybody has today. Thank you very much for helping me, but my brain doesn't work right.
Good morning, I'm Sue Kearson, and I want to share a joy, and that is the fact that this is one of my favorite weeks of the year, because traditionally our grandson, Arthur Kearson, comes to visit. And after a couple of years of a very messed up visiting schedule, he is back. Arthur, could you raise your hand? So even though I think of Arthur as a little kid, because he is our youngest grandchild, he is now in college. He lives in Boston, attends the University of Massachusetts in Lowell, and we're having a great visit, except when we play Scrabble, and he always wins.
I am Jonah, and my joy is that I am almost 82 years old, and in my entire life, I've only lived alone for 4 months. Last week, I moved into an apartment all by myself. And I just want to thank all of you who encouraged me, who gave me things for my kitchen, and who I'm going to invite over to visit at my house. Thank you.
I would like to light a candle of memory for my dear friend and mentor, the Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs, who was the minister in St. Paul, Minnesota for many years. And he retired and now has passed away very suddenly.
We invite those who are joining us in Zoom now to And I want to light one final candle for those milestones left unspoken this morning, and appreciate our recognition that this community gathers here and from afar as we help support one another in the days and weeks to come. Invite you into a moment of silence.
Dear friends, will you now join me in a time of prayer and meditation? And today's meditation comes from Becky Edmiston Lang. Spirit within all, mysterious force giving shape to life, miraculous source and river of being. Help us to know who we are, to see our place in the history of the earth and in the family of things. Help us to see that we are part of all that ever was. Our grandmother's prayers and our grandfather's dreamings, our mother's courage and our father's hope. In our bones lies the calcium of antediluvian creatures. In our veins courses the waters of seas. We are part of all that ever was. Born of this earth, riders upon a cosmic ocean. We are not separate from nature, we are nature. Part of that same spirit that turned scales into feathers and birdsong into speech. We live by the sun, we move by the stars, we eat from the earth, we drink from the rain. O great Spirit, help us know who we are and fill us with such love for this holy creation and gratitude for this awesome gift we call living, that we might claim our inheritance and live out our calling to bless the world and each other with our care. May it be so, and amen. Please remain seated now for Spirit of Life. Our first reading is from Jack Kerouac, On the Road. As we crossed the Colorado-Utah border, I saw God in the sky, in the form of huge gold sun-burning clouds above the desert that seemed to point a finger at me and say, pass here and go on. You're on the road to heaven. And our second reading today is from Willie Nelson. On the road again, just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends, and I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, go in places that I've never been, seeing things that I may never see again. And I can't wait to get on the road again.
As we announced last week, our offertory split this month is for Iowa Watch, formerly known as the Iowa Center for Public Affairs Journalism. This is a nonprofit, nonpartisan news service that specializes in investigative journalism and supports educational efforts to help us all understand the role of journalism in a democracy. We'll have special music from Peggy Earnshaw while we find the baskets and pass them this morning. And we invite those of you joining us online log on at any time to support the work of this fellowship.
Good morning, Ames. My name is Reverend A.J. Galazin. My pronouns are he and his, and I'm your interim minister, your in-between minister, your temporary confidant and spiritual companion. Last Sunday, I was a first-time visitor here. And like all good Unitarian Universalists, I appreciated that many of you proudly wore your name tags. Thank you. And then I noticed that you keep them in alphabetical order on the name tag board. I'm easily impressed. I loved listening as you shared your personal stories related to water. My credo is that worship is the work of the people, and you demonstrated that very well last Sunday. When we bring our authentic selves to this place, we all have an important part to play. Amen. Special thanks to your fellowship president, Jamie, your congregational administrator, Bradley, and worship coordinator, Amy, for taking the extra time and energy to get me up to speed. These first few months of a new ministry can be very disorienting for everyone. I need to forget the systems I have used in the past and acclimate to the culture of this fellowship. Thank you for giving me some space as I navigate my transition. I want to get to know each and every one of you, and I appreciate your patience. Today we begin what I hope will be a meaningful, long-term conversation. I do not come to you with a pre-programmed direction. I don't know what we will say to each other. Like Maya Angelou, we bring our own baggage to this place. I'm obsessed with baggage right now. Since I've been unloading and unpacking and asking myself, why did I bring so much stuff? My minimalist rule is to take no more than I can fit in my car. But it's quite amazing how much stuff you can cram in between boxes and under the seats. Sometimes I feel like I'm on a life raft, and yet I want to be surrounded by all the comforts of home. I know I can't take it with me. I guess you could say I'm back on the road again. I'm not sure of my bearings, but somehow I'm making my way and proceeding on course. The open road is an apt metaphor for the spiritual quest. It can be smooth or bumpy. It can be a one-way street or an endless loop. So I love to look for signs along the road. Signs help orient me to where I am and point out attractions and oddities along the way. I love signs. I collect signs. Please point out the signs I may have missed. Many years ago, I was driving south on I-35 and came to a sign that said, "Welcome to Iowa, a place to grow." To which someone had scribbled, "Corn." I realized the humor and wit of this anonymous prankster as I passed mile after mile of rolling green cornfields. Years later, I now wonder, was the writer a proud Iowan sharing self-deprecating commentary? Or was this an example of over-the-top Minnesotan snarkiness? With all signs, it is important to consider the source. I remembered that sign, "A place to grow corn," this week as I walked around my new neighborhood in Ames. My building sits next to a cemetery, next to a come and go, and yes, next to a cornfield. I'm not in Texas anymore. I'm in a place to grow corn. Now, to be fair, the current sign on the state line says, "Welcome to Iowa, fields of opportunity." I like that motto more than "a place to grow corn." I like the word fields with its connotation of academic and vocational specialties. I am outstanding in my field. I like the idea of wide open spaces, ready for fertile imagination to take root. I like the neutrality of soil, respecting a diversity of ideas. And I am glad to share my next opportunity with you here in Ames. The famous real estate mantra of location, location, location argues that if all other things are equal, a property's location will determine its value. The more desirable locations bring higher prices. Lately, I've been thinking about location as a function of my theology, the way I talk about ultimate value. Different spiritual locations may offer different investment returns from the universe. Today, I want to talk about three kinds of location. First, social location. The identities that we bring into the social order. Second, inherited or adopted location. The places we have inhabited that form us over time. And finally, our present location, the beloved community we now call home. If you've been to any of our UU denominational meetings lately, you probably have noticed that speakers offer detailed self-selected disclosures of their social location and often their physical appearance. And it is now my privilege and my burden to put into words who I am and what I represent. The important thing is that each of us does this in our own way. I'm not going to repeat this every week, but here is my introduction. I am male. I am white. I am middle class. I am somewhere between middle age and senior citizen. I am educated and politically aware. I am of average physical ability. I use hearing aids. And if you wear a mask, I can't read your lips, and your voice may be muffled. I might ask you to repeat yourself. I am gay. I am married to my husband, Matthew. We've been together for 35 years. He is a psychiatric nurse manager at a mental health clinic. We have 2 standard poodles and a cat. We live in the deep forest. I like to walk in the woods as a form of meditation. I am a Unitarian Universalist, which for me means that I value the inherent worth and dignity of every person over and above any specific creed or profession of sectarian division. I am a large, bald person with a booming voice. I am aware of how my physical presence may appear threatening to some people. I am wearing a black clerical robe and a ministerial stole. This habit of dress connects me to my ordination and to the lineage of preachers and teachers from our liberal tradition. And it de-emphasizes my personal idiosyncrasies and biases. As your contracted interim minister, I am accountable to the Board of Trustees of this congregation, to the collegial ethics of the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association, to the oversight of the UUA Ministerial Fellowship Committee, and to the interdependent web of all existence of which I am a part. Amen. Thus ends my self-selected disclosure of social location. Now, there can be an issue with self-selected disclosure. It may reveal a bias that we are unaware of. What we don't say about ourselves can sometimes speak more loudly than what we do say. And that is where our formative locations, the communities that help shape us, come into play. And I've lived in 3 primary places in my life: Bloomington, Minnesota, Minneapolis, and Cornucopia, Wisconsin. I grew up in Bloomington, Minnesota, which was an almost all-white suburb of Minneapolis with an excellent school system and beautiful parks. My family was Catholic, and I went to church every Sunday. The people I knew in school were 48% Catholic, 48% Lutheran, and 2% all others. I knew 1 Mormon, 1 Baptist, 1 Episcopal, 1 Methodist, 1 Presbyterian, 1 Congregational, and 1 Jewish. Lucky me. Bloomington became known as home of the Mall of America, a huge shopping center that is still getting bigger. And at first, I was vehemently opposed to the Mall of America. Do we really need even more of the same retail and commercial outlets? But over the years, I have changed my tune. I still love Main Street, and I support it wherever it exists and thrives, and I love Ames Main Street. But the Mall of America is a unique smorgasbord for people watching. I don't know of any other place where such a reliable diversity of humanity passes right before you. Maybe Times Square. Bloomington is now a multicultural city, and there are great places to eat. Growing up gay, I understood the mildly Stepford Wives quality of suburbia, even as I served as chairperson of the Bloomington Youth Commission, a panel that advised the City Council on youth programs. When I left the suburb and moved to the inner city of Minneapolis, I worked with people hovering at the poverty line. I lived in neighborhoods where murders occurred every other week. I marched in pride parades and got to know a variety of people who had less privileged lives from my point of view. I ran for city council and lost. For more than 20 years, I worked in nursing homes with the elderly, the disabled, and people at the end of life, helping residents apply for and navigate Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and insurance. Minneapolis was also where I discovered Unitarian Universalism. I was a volunteer delivery driver for the local LGBTQ newspaper. And one of my drop-off places was something called the First Universalist Church of Minneapolis, which was also the oldest church in the city. At that time, 99% of all religious groups were openly hostile to the gay community. I eventually found the courage to attend a service at First Universalist, where I was inspired to join a community of free and progressive faith, working together for social justice. My husband and I eventually wanted a change of pace, and we moved from the city to my grandparents' house in northern Wisconsin. I'm the fourth generation to live in my little town. Adjusting to rural life as a gay couple was a wake-up call. We were open and obvious, but at the same time isolated and alone. It is a truism that everyone knows everybody's business in a small town. And eventually, we learned the customs. For example, people wave at each other in the country, even if they don't know each other. You would be considered very strange doing this in the city. I went to seminary to discover my religious vocation. The call to ministry moved me to Ottawa, Ontario, the capital of Canada, to Denton, Texas, a boomtown on the edge of the Dallas Metroplex, and now to Ames, Iowa, a college town in Middle America. Each new location adds to my theology. You are already influencing me even without knowing it, just by being who you are. Your assignment this week, should you choose to accept it, is to ask yourself, how do you describe your social location? How much do you self-disclose? When you introduce yourself, what are the important locations that have helped inform your spiritual or ethical path? What location feels like home? I think it would be wonderful if every Sunday, one or two people could introduce themselves using some of the social location guidelines I just demonstrated. This could begin an ongoing conversation that honors the privilege and accepts the burden of self-selected disclosure. Don't worry, this is not a test, and you really can't take it by yourself. It takes a community. May it be so, and amen. Please rise now in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 116, I'm on my way. Our closing words come from Reverend Richard S. Gilbert. Enough, I say, of big things and great things and extraordinary things and ultimate things. I celebrate the ordinary. I lift my voice in praise. Go now in peace. And we extinguish this chalice, but not the memory of our time together.